What if the timeline of human civilization is completely wrong, not off by a few years, not slightly inaccurate, completely fabricated? Museums around the world display artifacts that don't fit the official narrative, objects that shouldn't exist according to accepted history, technology that predates its supposed invention by thousands of years. The archaeological establishment has a problem. Evidence keeps surfacing that contradicts everything taught in textbooks. Ancient batteries found in Iraq, precision-machined artifacts in Egypt, maps showing Antarctica without ice. When these discoveries surface, they disappear, locked in warehouse storage, buried in classified archives, dismissed as hoaxes without proper investigation. Today, we're examining 15 ancient artifacts that challenge the established timeline of human history, objects that have been authenticated, documented, and then quietly suppressed. Each one suggests that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge and technology that shouldn't have been possible. Fair warning, what you're about to see contradicts what every history textbook teaches. But the evidence exists. The artifacts are real. The documentation is available to anyone willing to look. The question isn't whether these objects exist. They do. The question is why their implications are systematically ignored, why researchers who study them find their careers destroyed, why evidence gets locked away instead of displayed. 15 artifacts. 15 instances where physical evidence contradicts accepted history. The pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Let's examine what they've been hiding. Number 1. The Baghdad Battery. In 1936, German archaeologist Wilhelm König made a discovery near Baghdad that shouldn't exist. A clay jar dating to 200 BCE. Inside, a copper cylinder. Inside that, an iron rod. König recognized the configuration immediately. It matched the design of a modern electrical battery. The artifact sat in the National Museum of Iraq, examined by experts from multiple countries. The consensus was undeniable. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, this 2,000-year-old device generates electrical current. Scientists replicated the design. It works. Produces about 1 volt. Ancient Parthians could have connected multiple jars in series for higher voltage. But here's the problem. According to accepted history, electricity wasn't discovered until the 18th century. Alessandro Volta invented the battery in 1800, yet physical evidence proves ancient Mesopotamians built working batteries 1,500 years earlier. The implications are staggering. What did they use electricity for? Evidence suggests electroplating. Ancient metalworkers could have used electrical current to coat objects with thin layers of gold or silver. This technology requires understanding of chemistry, metallurgy, and electrical principles, knowledge that supposedly didn't exist for another millennium and a half. After König's discovery, similar artifacts appeared. Multiple batteries found in Parthian archaeological sites, all showing the same sophisticated design. This wasn't a one-time accident. This was reproducible technology. The National Museum displayed these batteries for decades. Then came 2003, the Iraq War. The museum was looted. Many artifacts disappeared, including several of the batteries. Today, most people have never heard of them. Textbooks don't mention ancient electricity. Museums rarely display the surviving examples. Why? Because accepting these batteries means accepting that ancient people possess scientific knowledge they weren't supposed to have. It means the timeline is wrong. The narrative of steady progress from primitive to advanced collapses. One artifact proved ancient civilizations understood electricity 2,000 years before the official discovery. That's not controversial. That's documented fact. But number 2 gets even stranger. Number 2. The Antikythera mechanism. In 1901, Greek sponge divers discovered a Roman shipwreck off the island of Antikythera. Among the cargo, they found a corroded lump of bronze and wood. Nobody paid much attention. Decades later, X-ray analysis revealed what hid inside. An impossibly complex mechanical device. Dozens of bronze gears. Precise engineering. Sophisticated astronomical calculations. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek computer, built around 100 BCE This device predicted solar eclipses, tracked planetary positions, and calculated the timing of the Olympic Games. It contains gear technology that wouldn't appear again in Europe until the 14th century. 1,300 years later, the mechanism uses a differential gear, a component so advanced that historians believed it was invented in the 16th century for clockmaking. Yet here it sits in a device from the ancient world. Scientists spent decades reconstructing how it worked. Michael Wright and Tony Freeth led teams using the latest imaging technology. What they discovered changed everything. The device tracked the cycles of the sun and moon with stunning accuracy. It predicted eclipses years in advance. It modeled the irregular orbit of the moon using epicyclic gearing. Ancient Greeks understood planetary motion well enough to build a mechanical calculator for astronomical predictions. This requires advanced mathematics, precision metalworking, and theoretical understanding that supposedly didn't exist. The historian Derek de Solla Price called it more complex than any other artifact from the next 1,000 years of human history. Nothing even close appeared until medieval astronomical clocks. Think about what this means. Ancient craftsmen machined gears to tolerances measured in fractions of a millimeter. Without power tools, without precision measuring instruments, they encoded sophisticated astronomical knowledge into a portable device. This wasn't decorative. This was functional technology. The mechanism sits in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens today. But for 70 years after its discovery, it gathered dust in storage. Authorities dismissed it as too advanced to be ancient. When scientists finally studied it properly, they found inscriptions, an instruction manual engraved on the bronze plates. The ancient Greeks documented how to use their computer, yet somehow, textbooks teach that ancient people believed the earth was flat, that they thought the sun revolved around us, that they had no understanding of celestial mechanics. The Antikythera mechanism proves otherwise. It's not theory, it's sitting in a museum, but that's just mechanical engineering. Number 3 involves impossible materials. Number 3. The Delhi Iron Pillar. In the Qutb complex in Delhi, India, stands a 7-meter iron pillar, erected in the 4th century CE, 1600 years old. It doesn't rust. Iron oxidizes. That's basic chemistry, especially in Delhi's humid climate. After 16 centuries, this pillar should be a pile of rust. Instead, the surface remains smooth, minimal corrosion. Modern metallurgists can't explain it. Scientists analyze the composition. The iron contains an unusually high percentage of phosphorus, about 1%. This creates a protective coating of misawanite, a compound that shields the iron from moisture. But here's the question. How did 4th century Indian metalworkers know to add phosphorus in precise quantities? How did they achieve the purity levels in the iron? The pillar weighs 6 tons. It's a single, seamless piece of wrought iron. Creating this required smelting massive quantities of ore at extreme temperatures, then forge welding the metal into a uniform column. Modern engineers struggle to replicate this process. The technology to produce 6 tons of high-quality wrought iron in a single piece barely existed until the Industrial Revolution, yet there it stands. Built over 1,500 years ago, using metallurgical knowledge that shouldn't have existed. The pillar was originally erected as a Vishnu devotional, later moved to its current location. For 16 centuries, it has resisted the elements that destroy modern iron structures. British engineers studied it during colonial rule. They couldn't reproduce the technique. The phosphorus content and purity levels exceeded what their technology could achieve. Some modern steel structures show significant rust damage after just decades. This iron pillar has stood for over a millennium and a half. The inscription on the pillar dates it precisely. Built during the reign of Chandragupta Vikramaditya, 4th century CE. This isn't speculation. This is documented history. Ancient Indian metallurgists possessed knowledge of corrosion-resistant iron alloys that modern science only explained in the 20th century. They had the technical capability to produce massive forgings that challenged 19th century engineers. None of this appears in standard history courses. The pillar stands as silent testimony to advanced ancient technology. Millions of tourists photograph it every year. Few understand what they're looking at. Evidence of sophisticated materials science, developed and implemented over 1,000 years before the scientific revolution. Number 4 takes us to Central America. Number 4. The Olmec stone heads. In the jungles of Mexico stand 17 massive stone heads, carved by the Olmec civilization between 1500 and 1000 BCE. Each head weighs up to 50 tons. The stone is basalt, quarried from the Tuxtla Mountains, located over 80 miles from where the heads now stand, through jungle terrain, across rivers and swamps. The official explanation claims the Olmecs moved these massive sculptures using log rollers and rope, 50-ton stones, through dense jungle for 80 miles. Engineers have attempted to replicate this feat using proposed ancient methods. It doesn't work. The logistics make it nearly impossible. But that's not the most mysterious aspect. The heads depict faces with features that don't match indigenous Mesoamerican populations. Broad noses, full lips, facial structures that suggest African characteristics. Archaeologists dismissed this for decades. Pre-Columbian contact with Africa was considered impossible. The Atlantic Ocean was too vast. Ancient people didn't have the maritime technology. Then came 1970. Morphological analysis of the heads. Anthropologists studied the facial features systematically. The African characteristics weren't subtle. They were pronounced. Dr. Ivan van Sertima published research documenting transatlantic contact between Africa and ancient America. He presented botanical evidence. African plants appeared in pre-Columbian America. American plants appeared in ancient Africa. The establishment rejected his work. Careers were threatened. But the stone heads remain. 50-ton sculptures with unmistakably African features, carved 3,000 years ago. The precision of the carving presents another problem. These aren't crude representations. The details are refined. Individual facial features, expression, personality. Basalt is volcanic rock, extremely hard. Carving it with stone tools requires immense time and effort. Yet the Olmecs produced these massive sculptures with remarkable precision. Each head is unique. Different individuals, possibly portraits of actual rulers or important figures. The artistic sophistication rivals any ancient civilization. Modern sculptors using steel tools struggle to match the quality. How did ancient craftsmen achieve this level of detail in one of the hardest stones? The heads sit in the jungle. Thousands of tourists visit them annually. Tour guides repeat the official story about log rollers and rope. But the engineering challenges remain unsolved. The African features remain unexplained. The precision remains remarkable. 17 massive stone sculptures, each weighing as much as a loaded semi-truck, transported impossible distances, depicting faces that suggest contact between continents, all created 3,000 years ago by a civilization that supposedly had no advanced technology. Number 5 brings us to ancient Egypt. Number 5. The Dendera light bulbs. In the Hathor Temple at Dendera, Egypt, strange relief carvings cover the walls. Dating to approximately 50 BCE, the images show peculiar objects that look disturbingly familiar. They look like giant light bulbs. The carvings depict elongated tubes mounted on pillars. Inside each tube, a serpent extends from end to end. A lotus flower supports the tube at one end. Cables connect to boxes that resemble modern electrical equipment. Engineers have analyzed these reliefs extensively. The configuration matches that of a Crookes tube, an early form of electric light invented in the 19th century. Egyptologists insist the images represent purely symbolic religious iconography. The serpents represent divine power. The tubes represent the womb of creation. But there's a problem with the symbolic interpretation. The carvings include specific technical details that serve no religious purpose. Cable connections, supporting structures, what appear to be insulators. Engineer Peter Krasa and archaeologist Reinhard Habeck conducted experiments. They built working replicas based on the Dendera carvings, using only technology available to ancient Egyptians. The devices produced light. They created a functioning arc lamp using the design shown in the temple. Components included a copper tube, wire, and a simple battery. The result matched the carved images exactly. The question becomes unavoidable. How did ancient Egyptian artists draw detailed schematics of electrical lighting devices thousands of years before electricity was discovered? The interior of Egyptian temples and tombs presents another mystery. Underground chambers, sealed passages, intricate hieroglyphs covering every surface. All this decoration was done in complete darkness. The official explanation suggests they used oil lamps or torches. But there's a problem. No soot. Oil lamps and torches produce carbon deposits. Burning them in enclosed spaces leaves black residue on walls and ceilings. Yet Egyptian tomb interiors show no soot accumulation. Artists spent months or years painting detailed scenes in underground chambers, in total darkness, without leaving any trace of smoke damage, unless they had another light source. The Baghdad battery proves ancient people understood electrical principles. The Dendera carvings show what might be technical diagrams of electrical lighting. The lack of soot suggests they used something other than fire for illumination. Connect these pieces. Ancient batteries. Temple carvings showing light-generating devices. Underground artwork with no torch marks. The evidence points to ancient electrical lighting, not definitively proven, but the pieces fit together uncomfortably well. Museums display photographs of the Dendera carvings. Tour guides explain the symbolic interpretation. Nobody mentions the engineering analysis. Nobody discusses the replica experiments. Because accepting ancient electrical lighting means accepting that the technology timeline is fundamentally wrong. It means ancient Egyptians had knowledge that shouldn't exist for millennia. Number 6 involves precision machining. Number 6. The granite boxes of the Serapeum. Beneath the Egyptian desert at Saqqara lies the Serapeum, a vast underground complex of chambers and corridors. Inside sit 24 enormous granite boxes. Each box weighs 70 tons, carved from single pieces of solid Aswan granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. But that's not what makes them impossible. It's the precision. Engineer Christopher Dunn measured these boxes with precision instruments. The results were shocking. The surfaces are flat to within 2/10,000ths of an inch. The interior corners are perfectly square. The walls maintain uniform thickness throughout. This level of precision exceeds what most modern machine shops achieve. We're talking about tolerances measured in microns. On boxes weighing 70 tons, made of solid granite. Granite is crystalline rock, extremely hard, difficult to work with, even using carbide-tipped tools and modern machinery. Ancient Egyptians supposedly used copper tools and stone hammers. Copper is softer than granite. It can't cut granite effectively. Stone hammers can chip and rough-shape granite, but they cannot create precision surfaces flat to 2/10,000ths of an inch. The boxes are finished on all sides, inside and outside, including the interiors, which are hollow. Creating a hollow space inside a 70-ton granite block requires removing approximately 20 tons of material. How? Using what tools? Dunn found evidence of machine marks. Tool marks indicating the use of tubular drills. These drill cores show spiral grooves with feed rates that modern drill bits struggle to match. We're talking about drilling through granite at speeds that require tremendous force. The official explanation suggests the Egyptians used copper tube drills with sand abrasive. Experiments show this method works, slowly, producing irregular results, nothing close to the precision found in the Serapeum boxes. Some boxes show no tool marks at all. The surfaces are so smooth they appear polished. Achieving this finish on granite requires abrasives and buffing techniques that approach modern standards. Egyptologists date these boxes to approximately 1300 BCE. The supposed purpose was to hold sacred Apis bull mummies. But the precision suggests a different purpose. Why create boxes with machine shop tolerances just to hold mummified bulls? Why invest the enormous effort required to achieve this precision if it serves no functional purpose? The boxes resemble precision measurement standards. reference surfaces for calibration, or containers designed to hold something requiring exact specifications. 24 boxes, each requiring thousands of hours of skilled labor, each finished to tolerances that challenge modern capabilities, all created over 3,000 years ago. The Serapeum is open to tourists. The boxes sit in their chambers. People photograph them, touch them. Few realize they're looking at evidence of advanced machining technology. Because accepting these boxes means accepting that ancient Egyptians had precision manufacturing capabilities equivalent to modern machine shops, that's not supposed to be possible. But the evidence sits in an underground chamber. Measurable, verifiable, undeniable. Number 7 takes us to South America. Number 7. The Piri Reis Map. In 1513, Turkish Admiral Piri Reis compiled a world map using older source maps from the Library of Alexandria. The map survived. It shows something impossible: Antarctica, in accurate detail, without ice. The map depicts the northern coast of Antarctica, mountain ranges, river valleys, coastal features, all matching the actual geography hidden beneath miles of ice. Here's the problem: Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. The Piri Reis map predates that by 300 years. Even more impossible. The ice sheet covering Antarctica has existed for millions of years, at least according to accepted geology. Yet the map shows the coastline as it would appear without ice. Professor Charles Hapgood studied the map extensively in the 1960s. He brought it to the attention of the United States Air Force. The Strategic Air Command analyzed it. Their conclusion was documented in official correspondence. The map showed details of Antarctic geography that weren't confirmed until 1949, using seismic surveys that could penetrate the ice. The ancient source maps used by Piri Reis must have been created when Antarctica was ice-free, or by people with the technology to map beneath the ice. Both options are impossible, according to established history. The level of cartographic sophistication on the map is remarkable. It uses spherical trigonometry, advanced mathematical projections, knowledge of latitude and longitude. These techniques weren't supposed to exist in the ancient world. Columbus didn't even have accurate longitude calculations in 1492. The map shows the Amazon River in detail. Interior features that European explorers wouldn't discover for decades. The source maps clearly came from advanced cartographers. Hapgood proposed that an advanced ancient civilization created the original maps, a civilization existing before recorded history, possibly before the last ice age. This theory was rejected by mainstream academia. Too radical, too threatening to established chronology. But the Piri Reis map exists. It's in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, analyzed by experts, authenticated as genuinely from 1513. The geographic accuracy is undeniable. The Antarctic coastline matches surveys done in the 20th century. Features that couldn't have been known in 1513 are clearly depicted. Either an unknown civilization mapped Antarctica before it was covered in ice, or ancient cartographers had technology to survey beneath the ice sheet. The map also shows islands in the Caribbean that wouldn't be discovered for years. Accurate positions, correct shapes, knowledge that shouldn't exist. Piri Reis claimed he used about 20 older source maps. Most have been lost, destroyed when the Library of Alexandria burned, but this one survived. One fragment of an ancient mapping project, a project that documented the entire world with precision that rivals modern satellite surveys. How did ancient people accomplish this? What technology did they possess? Why is all other evidence gone? The map raises questions that can't be answered within the accepted historical framework, so it's rarely mentioned, filed away as a curious anomaly. But it's not an anomaly. It's evidence, physical, documented evidence that challenges everything. Number 8 involves impossible engineering. Number 8. The Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek. In Lebanon stands the Temple of Jupiter, built during Roman times on top of much older foundations. Those foundations contain the largest carved stones ever moved by human beings. The Trilithon, 3 massive limestone blocks, each weighing approximately 800 tons. That's 1,600,000 pounds per stone. These blocks sit 20 feet above ground level, fitted together so precisely that a razor blade cannot fit between them. No mortar, just perfect stone-to-stone contact. Modern construction can't replicate this feat. The world's largest crane can lift about 10,000 tons, but that's pure lifting. Moving an 800-ton stone laterally, positioning it precisely, and setting it in place 20 feet up presents problems that modern engineering struggles to solve. The quarry where these stones were cut sits approximately 3/4 of a mile away, uphill. The terrain between the quarry and the temple is rough. Romans had excellent engineering skills. They built roads, aqueducts, and massive structures. But nothing else in the Roman world approaches the scale of the Baalbek stones. These stones were already in place when the Romans arrived. They built their temple on top of older foundations attributed to the Phoenicians. But Phoenician construction elsewhere uses much smaller stones. Some researchers suggest the foundations date to much earlier, possibly to a pre-flood civilization. The stones are so massive they could survive catastrophic events that would destroy normal structures. Archaeologist Jean-Pierre Adam studied the site extensively. He proposed the Romans move the stones using cradles and rollers. Thousands of workers, years of effort, but the calculations don't work. 800 tons on wooden rollers would crush the wood. The friction would be enormous. Moving uphill multiplies the difficulty exponentially. Even if somehow accomplished, the precision placement presents another problem. These stones are set exactly level, fitted against adjacent stones with hairline accuracy. At a height of 20 feet, lowering an 800-ton stone onto its foundation while maintaining perfect alignment requires control systems beyond ancient Roman technology. One wrong move, and the stone shatters, or kills dozens of workers. The engineering challenges are so severe that some researchers propose unknown technology, advanced lifting devices, methods that haven't survived in the historical record. What's even stranger is that larger stones exist in the quarry. The stone of the pregnant woman weighs approximately 1,000 tons. The stone of the south weighs 1,650 tons. Both are fully carved, finished, ready to be moved, but they remain in the quarry. Why start cutting stones that big if you couldn't move the 800-ton ones efficiently? Unless the people who started the project had the technology to move them, and that technology was lost before completion. Baalbek represents engineering at a scale that barely makes sense even today. Built in an era when the most advanced machinery was the lever and the wedge. The stones sit there. Weighing stations exist to verify their mass. Engineers can measure them, photograph them, touch them. But nobody can explain how they were moved. Nobody can replicate the process. The evidence exists without explanation. That pattern should be familiar by now. Number 9 continues the theme. Number 9. The Dropa stones. In 1938, Chinese archaeologist Chi Pute led an expedition into the remote Bayan Har Mountains. The team explored caves in an area rarely visited by outsiders. Inside, they found graves, laid out in neat rows, 716 graves. The skeletons were strange, thin, fragile, large skulls, approximately 4 feet tall. Among the graves lay stone discs, 716 discs, each about 9 inches in diameter, each with a small hole in the center, covered with tiny grooved spirals. The spirals weren't decorative. They were writing. Microscopic hieroglyphs carved into the spiral grooves. Each disc contained thousands of characters. The stones were examined in Beijing. Archaeologists couldn't decipher the writing. The language didn't match any known Chinese script. The discs were catalogued and stored. For 20 years, they remained unstudied. Then, in 1962, Professor Tsum Nui at the Academy of Prehistory in Beijing finally decoded them. His translation told an impossible story. The discs described a spacecraft crash 12,000 years ago. Visitors from another planet, stranded in the mountains. Unable to repair their ship, the visitors made contact with local tribes. Some were killed out of fear. Eventually, the survivors were accepted. They lived out their lives in the mountains. The discs were their record. Professor Tsum Nui published his findings. The academic response was swift and brutal. The Academy suppressed his work, prohibited him from further research, declared the translation nonsense. He died shortly after. His research disappeared from official records, but the discs remained. Soviet scientists requested samples in 1968. Dr. Vyacheslav Sizev tested them in Moscow. He found unusual properties. The stones contained high concentrations of cobalt and other metals. When placed on a turntable, the discs vibrated. They oscillated, as if they contained or once contained an electrical charge. Stone doesn't normally conduct electricity. These discs behave differently, suggesting they were manufactured, not natural rock. The hieroglyphs were analyzed by other linguists. Some confirmed elements of Tsum Nui's translation. Others dismissed it entirely. The debate raged briefly. Then the discs disappeared. Today, nobody knows where most of them are. A few remain in Chinese museums, not on display, in storage, rarely photographed, never discussed officially. The story is dismissed as pseudo-archaeology. The translation rejected as fantasy. The physical evidence locked away. But 716 stone discs existed. 716 graves with unusual skeletons in a remote mountain range, associated with legends of sky people who came from the stars. Local tribes in the area have stories passed down for generations. Stories about visitors from the sky, small people who came down from the clouds, who couldn't return home. The Dropa people still live in the region. They don't match other Chinese ethnic groups. They're unusually short, distinctive physical features, no clear connection to surrounding populations. Genetic studies could provide answers, but such studies aren't being conducted. The official position is that the Dropa stones are a hoax. Except multiple archaeologists documented them. Soviet scientists tested them. Museums held them. They're not a hoax. They're hidden. Because what they suggest is too far outside accepted history. Ancient astronauts, prehistoric contact, advanced visitors 12,000 years ago. The evidence was buried. The researchers discredited. The artifacts locked away. Standard procedure when something threatens the narrative. Number 10 brings us to the most suppressed evidence of all. Number 10. The Puma Punku Complex. In the highlands of Bolivia lies Puma Punku, part of the larger Tiwanaku site, dated to approximately 600 CE, but possibly much older. The site contains stones cut and shaped with precision that defies explanation. Intricate corners, perfect right angles, interlocking blocks, all carved from diorite and granite. Diorite rates 8.5 on the Mohs hardness scale, nearly as hard as diamond. Modern stonemasons use diamond-tipped saws to cut it. Ancient Bolivians supposedly used stone hammers. The blocks show evidence of machine precision. Perfectly flat surfaces, exact 90-degree angles, uniform depths. Some blocks have smooth grooves, less than a centimeter wide, carved to exact depths. Creating these features in granite requires precision cutting tools. The tolerances are too exact for hand tools. Even skilled craftsmen using modern equipment struggle to match this precision. Engineer Christopher Dunn analyzed the Puma Punku stones. He found evidence of advanced machining, tool marks suggesting rotary cutting, precision grinding, techniques that require powered equipment. Some blocks show H-shaped cuts, perfectly symmetrical. These shapes allowed blocks to interlock without mortar, like massive Lego pieces, but carved from the hardest stone. The blocks also show drill holes, perfectly round, uniform depth. Modern drills with diamond bits create similar holes. How did ancient people drill perfect holes in diorite? The site shows evidence of massive destruction. The precise blocks are scattered, broken, lying at odd angles, as if the entire complex was destroyed by tremendous force. Some blocks weigh over 100 tons, yet they're tossed about like children's toys. Whatever destroyed Puma Punku released catastrophic energy. The stones don't match the surrounding geology. They were quarried from a site 10 miles away, across Lake Titicaca. Moving 100-ton diorite blocks over water presents engineering challenges beyond ancient capabilities. The official dating places construction at 600 CE, but no civilization in South America at that time had the technology to create these precision cuts. Some researchers propose much earlier construction, during a lost, advanced civilization, before the catastrophe that destroyed the site. Local legends support this theory. Stories of a great flood, of cities that existed before the current age, of builders who possessed godlike powers. The precision machining at Pumapunku exceeds anything else from the pre-Columbian Americas. It matches work done by civilizations supposedly thousands of years more advanced. Some blocks have surfaces polished to a mirror finish. Achieving this on diorite requires abrasive compounds and polishing techniques that approach modern standards. The site raises impossible questions. How were these stones cut? What tools achieved this precision? How were they transported? What destroyed the complex so completely? Every explanation that uses accepted historical technology falls short. The precision is too high. The scales too large. The destruction too catastrophic. What remains is evidence without explanation. Perfect machining carved into the hardest stone, created by people who supposedly had only stone tools, then destroyed by a cataclysm that scattered 100-ton blocks like rubble. Pumapunku sits high in the Bolivian Altiplano. Tourists visit, take photographs, marvel at the strange precision. Tour guides offer standard explanations about Tiwanaku culture. Nobody mentions the impossible engineering. Nobody discusses the machine tolerances. Nobody explains how Stone Age people created what modern equipment struggles to replicate. Because accepting Pumapunku means accepting that ancient people had technology we don't understand. Technology that challenges the entire historical narrative. That's the pattern. That's always the pattern. 15 ancient artifacts. 15 pieces of physical evidence that contradict accepted history. The Baghdad battery proves ancient people understood electrical principles 2,000 years before the official discovery. The Antikythera mechanism demonstrates computational technology 13 centuries ahead of its time. The Delhi iron pillar shows metallurgical knowledge that challenges modern science. Olmec stoneheads suggest transatlantic contact 3,000 years ago. Dendera carvings show detailed technical drawings of what appeared to be electrical lighting. The Serapeum boxes display machine shop precision created with copper tools. The Piri Reis map depicts Antarctica without ice. Baalbek contains stones no modern equipment can move. The Dropa stones tell stories officially dismissed but physically undeniable. Pumapunku shows precision machining in the hardest stone known. 15 artifacts, all authenticated, all documented, all suppressed. The pattern is clear. When evidence contradicts the established timeline, it disappears. When researchers investigate too thoroughly, careers end. When the public shows too much interest, museums restrict access. This isn't isolated. This is systematic. The established narrative requires human civilization to follow a specific path. Stone Age to Bronze Age to Iron Age. Primitive to advanced. Steady, linear progress. But the physical evidence tells a different story. Evidence of advanced technology in the ancient world. Knowledge that shouldn't exist. Capabilities that require explanations outside accepted history. These artifacts suggest ancient civilizations possessed knowledge we're only beginning to rediscover. They had metallurgy, electronics, precision machining, advanced cartography, and computational devices. That knowledge was lost. Whether through catastrophe, war, or the simple passage of time, it vanished, leaving only fragments. Artifacts that survived, but whose context was forgotten. Modern archaeology has two choices: acknowledge these artifacts and revise history, or suppress them and maintain the current narrative. The establishment chose suppression, museum storage instead of display, dismissal instead of investigation, career destruction instead of open inquiry. But suppression only works temporarily. The artifacts still exist, the evidence remains available, the questions persist. What was lost? What did ancient people know that we've forgotten? What technology existed before recorded history? These aren't fringe questions. These are scientific questions, answerable through honest investigation and open inquiry. But that investigation isn't happening. The academic establishment protects the narrative. Alternative theories are dismissed without examination. Researchers who challenge orthodoxy are marginalized. The evidence speaks regardless. Physical artifacts don't lie. Measurements don't change based on belief. The precision machining at Pumapunku exists whether academia acknowledges it or not. 15 artifacts, 15 pieces of a larger puzzle. A puzzle showing that human history is far more complex than textbooks admit. The truth has been hidden, but it cannot be erased. The artifacts remain. The evidence persists. The questions demand answers. What you believe is your choice. But remember that the establishment counts on people accepting official narratives without question. They count on suppression working. They count on evidence staying buried. Stay curious. Question everything. Examine evidence directly. Think independently. The artifacts exist. The implications are profound. The truth is waiting for those willing to look.